In 1930s, African Americans had no civil rights. Land ownership was possible but very limited. For instance, if an African American family owned land, the white people could take it if they saw of use for it, nor were they involved in politics whatsoever. Formal education was not given to African Americans. It was illegal for them to read books or go to any school or library. The only jobs that African Americans could perform was work in the house of ex-slave owners, doing chores like cleaning, washing, and farm, yard work, or cooking. Since their early years, kids would work as farmers and in crops.
Economics ruled over politics. The Social Security Act of 1935 set up a program to ensure an income for the elderly. The Wagner Act of 1935 gave workers the legal right to unionize. John L. Lewis founded the CIO and blue-collar worker conditions improved. Joseph P. Kennedy was made chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commissions. This time was bad for education. Books, supplies, and clothes all had to be bought back then. This was necessary to attend school. Taxes went unpaid. With the loss of revenue, school terms had to be shortened. Different strategies were used to try to keep the school operating, and teacher salaries were cut. When counties in other areas, Arkansas for example, had to pay tuition for 1 year, some students were forced to drop out. The American dream had become a nightmare. Opportunity had turned into desperation. The Americans started questioning everything they had based their lives on: democracy, capitalism, and individualism. The place they turned to was California. Between 1929 and 1932, income had reduced by 40% from $2,300 to $1,500. A lot changed in this time, but democracy prevailed.
With millions of people out of work and millions others having lost their life savings, the majority of the people had predicted that there would have been a strong reassurance with the church during the period of the Great Depression. Indeed, after decades of declining church membership and what many perceived to be general decline in religious prayer throughout the country, many people saw the Depression as partly a heavenly response to improve the country.
It's the same old team since 1916. In your head, they're still fighting with their tanks and their bombs.
Art in the 1930s was another instrument used by people for entertainment. It was used to influence ideas as a means of communication. Art was a way of expressing oneself. Since the Great Depression had caused economic problems as well as internal conflicts, people tried to find an escape from their sorrows and express their emotions through images.
Finger painting had recently been discovered in the 1930s. Artists used different techniques to get their messages across. Painting styles or painting techniques were not very much different compared to the present art. The artworks were mostly depressing due to the Great Depression, which was prevalent to the United States.
Live theater got off to a slow start in the 1930s, but George and Ira Gershwin and Richard Rodgers and Lawrence Hart turned out shows like Crazy Girl, Porgy and Bess, Strike Up the Band, and Jumbo to pull people into the seats. In addition to the type of entertainment offered by the new shows, there were many innovations in staging and setting taking place. One such innovator, Hazard Short, introduced new ideas such as spotlights hung from the balcony instead of footlights on stages, turnables on the stages for quick scene changes, and sets controlled and moved by use of hydraulics. One stage raised a 50-piece orchestra from the basement of the theater for the finale. Radio had arrived full force in the 1930s, and already the folk of rural America were being introduced to a variety of music styles that they adapted into their own traditional sound. American music flourished and expanded during the 1930s, driven by a search of authentic American voices and from rhythms. From sophisticated symphonic composers, urban recording executives, and rural radio station operators.
Javi.
Patricia.
Fabio.
Thank you.